Watch this!
Okay, it's time for our last exercise for pull day, the obliques. Again, in quotation marks, because it doesn't only work the obliques, the sides of the waist, it also works the rectus abdominis and other supporting abdominal muscles. Now the obliques, you have the internal, the external abdominal obliques are involved typically with rotation exercises and trunk flexion. What we're going to do is an oblique exercise where you're lying down on a table or on the floor, something where you don't have any equipment. Instead of this exercise, you could put your legs to the side like on that abdominal crunch machine and still target the side of the waist. You can do a rotary torso type machine. You can do a physio ball crunch where you're lying on top of one of those big balls and coming up and flexing the trunk and rotating, or just a floor crunch or a table crunch, something where you have a medicine ball in your hand or your arms crossed across your chest, hands behind your head, something where you're crunching and rotating. So any kind of those movements work the obliques. This one's one of my favorites. It's the lying V crunch. I prefer to do it on a table with some kind of a pad to it or just a mat on the ground. But you're going to lie down not on your side per se, not up on the hip. That's a little bit painful. You're going to lean back a little bit. And the more you lean back, the more it's going to work the oblique. If you lean forward like this, it tends to get the lower back a little bit more. It's not a good way of working it. Lean back so that you're kind of on the divot of your glute. You're not leaning all the way back, you're not leaning all the way forward, you're somewhere in between. You'll once you do the exercise a few times, you'll kind of know which position you should be in. Your hand's going to be down by your side, and it's almost like you're coming up and just reading a book or a magazine. You're going to come up like this, pretend you're holding a book or a magazine. It does make it easier, and back down. Doesn't look like much, but you're going to be wishing you're still doing back and biceps after doing a few of these. So up and down like this, hold it, slowly down. That's the easiest way to kind of get used to the exercise. Then put your hand down like this, one hand behind the head, put a little more resistance this way, which makes it a little bit tougher. Coming up like this, holding it, slowly back down. Now as you come up, you want to make sure you're bending through the waist, through the oblique. You're not lifting up just the hip. You're not keeping your upper body like this. You're going to pull it in tight. You're going to pull this down in, contract the muscle. You may actually want to have one hand here and bring up one leg at the same time. Slowly back down. Breathing out on the way up, holding it, slowly back down. If that gets too easy for you, you can progress to the point where you're still holding your hand here, but bringing both legs up. Now, as I bring my legs up, I'm bringing them straight up against gravity. They're not going forward. Whether it's one leg or two, I don't want to go like this. I don't want to bring my knee in like this. That's not working it's not putting any more resistance on the oblique. I actually want to lift my legs up at the same angle. My knees are locked at the same angle, like that. Don't rest at the bottom, and slowly back down. One of the most difficult ways of doing this exercise is to actually place both hands behind the head and bring up both feet at the same time. So you're actually displacing your body weight and you're bringing it up on one either little or big axis of rotation. I got to be careful how I pronounce that. But you're lifting yourself up onto an actual V. You're doing a literal V, which is a great exercise for the obliques. It's a lot of demand though. You got to be very careful. If you have any lower back issues at all, be very careful with that. It's for most people, you probably want to support part of your body weight with your hand. Another thing when you're working obliques, regardless of which type of exercise you're doing, don't always train the left side first. Sometimes do the right side first, sometimes do the left side first. Kind of every week, maybe alternate which side. You don't want to be developing one side more than the other. And that's it for obliques, that's it for pull day, and that's it for this entire healthy introduction to strength training. So finally, I'm speechless. I don't quite know where to go from here. There's no next, unless maybe we'll do a long fade to black here. I don't know if you've checked out our healthy introduction to flexibility, or the healthy introduction to cardiovascular training, the healthy introduction to fat loss, the healthy introduction to kids training. Oh yeah, and healthy introductions to training with a bunch of dumbbells, or with no equipment,
or training at home, or training on the road, and healthy introductions to golf-specific training, and healthy introductions to lowering blood pressure, healthy introductions to low back pain, healthy introductions to abdominal training, healthy introductions to advanced training principles, healthy introductions